Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's Modern Sales Pros Masterclass on moving the middle with modern video prospecting, presented by the team at Vidyard. We're joined here by Dan Wardle from the team at Vidyard. And Dan, before we get started and jump into everything, we do have a tradition at MSP. As a first-time panelist, this is maybe new to you, and I'm going to put you on the spot. A little of the global pandemic going on, as you may have noticed. We're always love to hear from our panelists. What new hobbies have you picked up, or old hobbies have you kind of refined and brought out of the closet during this now going on 6-month pandemic?
I unfortunately, well, actually I did. I started playing the piano, which I haven't done since I was a kid. I think when the summer came, I got sidelined a little bit and I started going outside more and stuff. But I got this app for my son on an iPad. I think it's called Simple Piano. And it, like, as you're playing, it recognizes and tells you if you're playing the right notes, so you don't have to get a teacher. And then he wasn't using it. So I'm like, wow, I'll start using it. Because I let the trial period expire. So I paid my money. I might as well use it. So it was going pretty well. I should get back into that now.
Well, it'll be winter soon in Toronto, like what, next month, right?
Yeah, next week, yeah.
Excellent. This is great. And then folks as well, we're going to just be doing a quick poll here that's going to go live in a second or two. So if you can, just fill that out. It's real simple, one question. Just pick the button that most represents you. It can be the letter that most represents you too, if you choose. And that's going to help Dan focus a little bit of his session here today. And we'll give folks just another 30 seconds to grab that last cup of coffee or sandwich for lunch before we jump in here. And it looks like that poll just went live. So we're going to give folks, like I said, you'll have a few minutes on that. But let's go ahead and get started. We've got a great program here today. I'm really, really excited to be joined by Dan. Before we jump into our content today, I just wanted to say a few things, a few housekeeping notes. In terms of our event today, folks, everybody please do use the Q&A panel. That's going to help us make sure that we give every answer its time and answer it to the fullest and the best of our abilities. In addition, inside of that Q&A panel, there's an upvote functionality and a comment functionality. Feel free to weigh in if somebody asks a question. Feel free to contribute or add some flavor or context to it. In addition, the recording will be available after the event. It takes about 24 hours to process. We'll see it up on YouTube. You'll get an email about that. And before we hand it off to Dan here, just a few words about Modern Sales Pros. So for those of you who aren't members, you'll be invited to join afterwards. But Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest community for revenue leaders, for those in sales management, sales enablement, sales operations, sales development, and the related supporting disciplines. Community has about 20,000 members, and the goal of our community is to create an environment where our members can answer questions they'd otherwise struggle to solve on their own. So that could be through bringing on an expert like Dan here today to talk a little bit about modern video prospecting. That could be through our online discussion group. And the great part about the community, when you ask a question of the community, you're getting perspective not just from one or two individuals, but you're getting perspective from individuals across all of these organizations and about 6,000 others. So really, really great place. And like I said, those of you who aren't members today will be invited to join afterwards. But enough about Modern Sales Pros. I'm going to hand it off to Dan from the team at Vidyard. Vidyard is our sponsor for our session here today, and they're also experts on this topic. So I'm going to hand it off to Dan for an introduction and to start taking us through on how we move the middle here.
Awesome. I didn't change the slide on purpose because I just wanted to say this logo salad color-coded is incredible. The designer needs kudos on this. It is not easy to fit logos together. And that is one of the most impressive ones I've seen. So kudos on that. Yeah, so thanks for everybody.
Thank you, Dan. It's usually about you, but
yeah, well, I've built those logo slides before for customer calls, and they are a huge pain in the butt. So that's super impressive. So thanks for everybody for joining today. I'm going to break today into 4 sections. The final one just being Q&A. I think before we get into like moving the middle and actually moving deals through the cycle, I do want to talk a little bit about prospecting first and how to make videos first. And the reason I'm able to present on this is I've been with Vidyard now for 8 years, and before that at Salesforce and BlackBerry. My background has always been in sales and always been using video to help me sell. So when I was back at Salesforce, every email I would send would have a link to a YouTube video to show how the Outlook integration worked or whatever it might be. Things have evolved a lot thanks to companies like Vidyard, where now video becomes an everyday use. I was just telling Richard this morning, I was on with a large telecom, and a bunch of them didn't have their camera on, and I was just mind blown, like in this day and age, why the videos aren't a part of your daily life, because it's the only way we really get to see people. Sometimes I forget that I haven't seen people because I'm on Zoom so much, and then I see them in person at an event out in the park or something, and I'm like, whoa, you have legs. Like, this is a whole new thing. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, is the fact that you forget you haven't actually met these people face to face. Tyler Lessard, our VP of marketing, he constantly used to have people coming up to him at events and like hugging him because they think they know him, but they've never met him before. It's just through video, and that's the power of video. So let's jump right into it. Prospecting today is not easy, and I would say even more difficult, obviously, in the last 6 months. There's just way too much email out there. In Canada here, we're actually trying to get the telecoms to block all of those robo dials that you're getting, and they just got an extension because they're still not done blocking them. And you need to break through all that noise. They don't know whether you're trying to get your ducks clean or if you're trying to sell software. And so you need to break through that noise through new ways of prospecting to make it a bit more personal. And HubSpot has some great data during the pandemic that doesn't show a good story either. The number of emails coming from their platform is up 50%, and the response rate is down 70%. So this is not going in the direction we all want it to go. And so what I'm going to propose today is personalizing your outreach using video is the way to break through some of that and really get people engaged with your content. And especially if you're using video, you can even make the thumbnail automated through a GIF and just make it fun. And so right off the bat, we're going to get into how to create some of these custom messages, where you should use them through your sales stages, through your prospecting cadence, whatever stage of the deal you're at, and also to track and understand what the view data means, and how to break through the noise. There was one question that you guys submitted for this that was, how do I balance my time between like doing personal things like this versus automatic emails? Tracking is the basis of it all. A lot of my team will only send hyper personalized content if their first email got an open, because at least you know that the email is correct. They don't have a spam blocker. They're opening your email. Now I'm going to make a very personal outreach to you because you were willing to open that last email. So there's one way you can use tracking and systems to really know when to be personal. I'm going to pull up the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yeah, no, you're not missing anything. I wanted to just chime in on the GIF point. This is something that, for those of you who are part of the modern sales communities, we use GIFs judiciously in terms of how we promote our events. And now they're not GIFs of us, right? They're GIFs of maybe a dog on a skateboard or something like that. But it is the level of it breaks through the noise in a way that's unexpected. It feels more human, and it's something where you get a chuckle out of it. And there's so much in the world right now that's maybe not laughing for the right reasons. It's a great way to personalize and touch. And that's why when Dan was walking through this is great stuff, folks.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a great way to increase your click-through rate with, limited effort. All right, so how do we set it up? What is their preferred channel? Like, this is the things that we really need to understand is, do they want a video in their inbox? Do they want a video in LinkedIn? Do they want it in Twitter? What is the channel best to communicate? So this is a great little video example from our friends over at Dynamic Signal. And this gentleman, saw some reference to buffalo chicken. And so he, tried to get interest, tried to make it fun, have that little thumbnail display something and get his prospect to respond to him by just being human. Maybe he's found something in their LinkedIn or Twitter profile that shows this is their favorite stuff. They love hot food, whatever it is. There is a line, I will say, on creepiness versus not. I've had some people reach out with stuff that I'm pretty sure is only on my Facebook, and that's kind of a weird place to research VP of revenue. So stick to the channels that are business focused. stick to the stuff that is relevant to their job. And if there's something fun like this, it's always great to see. But there's kind of two sides there. It's the, making sure you're reaching out on their preferred channel and making sure you're reaching out with something that is relevant to them. And so the first
Dan, I gotta
spot you
ask,
do,
did he
yeah,
get a? Sorry, I have to jump in. You can't start a story like that and not tell us. Did he get the meeting from the
he got
Buffalo
the
Hot
meeting.
Wings, or was it just?
I don't know if he closed the deal, but he definitely got the meeting,
That's
and
all
he
right. He
was
got
so
the meeting.
excited.
That's good enough.
Yeah, he sent us that video. So excited. I had somebody send me a video the other day. Actually, there's a website where you can pay famous people to make videos for you, and so they had Chuck Norris making a video about why their platform is the best data consolidation platform of some kind. I wouldn't necessarily get Chuck Norris. He's actually not aging well. The video, he's getting up there in age, but it was hilarious anyway that he got Chuck Norris to do that.
Yeah, it definitely breaks through the noise here. This is phenomenal.
Yeah. So the kickoff, the very beginning of every sales cycle is this personal introduction. And there's kind of two stories I'll tell here. Obviously, Boston University saw that their open rate and response rate is like double what they normally see when they're not doing some kind of personalized thumbnail. And that's the key. If you really think that you need to make a personal video for somebody, they need to see that in the thumbnail. They don't know that you spent an hour on this video if the thumbnail just looks like any other video you could make. So you need to make sure that thumbnail has their name in it, their face in it. I love starting on someone's LinkedIn profile as a screen share video so that they see, oh, they made this for me. And why are they on my LinkedIn profile? It makes everyone just like, their crocodile brains like, what's this person about to say about me? And so you get a huge click-through rate. And it's not as intimidating as, my handwriting's terrible. So doing the whiteboard videos personally, I just don't do them, even though my company, we talk about them so much. They just look terrible. Looks like my 8-year-old did it. So I tend to do the screen recording to catch their attention on that thumbnail. So that's, great on the education sector specifically. They just see huge success on this. But Salesforce had another use case for this. So Salesforce, they get tremendous response rate on their first outreach. So it was no big deal. They don't need help with that. They get 30% response rate. What they have trouble with is if that meeting gets booked and it's 72 hours away, so they book a meeting today for Tuesday, the likelihood of the person showing up for that meeting was only 60%. So all that work, putting it in their calendar, the 5 touches it took to get them, and then they don't show up on Tuesday. And so what they've done is they implemented this where they will, outreach with a personal video to make that human connection so that when you don't show up on Tuesday, you let this face down. You let a human down. I'm sitting here on Zoom waiting for you. You didn't email me. You didn't tell me you weren't joining. There's a psychological effect there where you will see the no-show rates dramatically change by getting that personal connection beforehand. So this is a big question here. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wanted to ask before we answer the question that came in via Q&A, is that a common sort of first step that folks can take in using video? I know we're about prospecting here and we'll get into moving the middle, but is that something you see folks just like really high leverage when they do that?
I would highly suggest it for 2 reasons. It's super fast to do because you don't have to make a super compelling message. It's 15 seconds of, hey, my name's Richard, like really looking to talk to you next week. It's all it needs to be. You've just put a face to a name. You could even just make one standard one and send it to everybody, depending on your volumes, if it's too much. But going back to the thumbnail, I always like to personalize that. So yeah, that's a big one that people do, and I would say the no-show rate of first meetings booked is a pretty common problem across the industry as well. So that's another good place to use it as well. I'm a big fan, and I'll talk about this later, of the handoff video as well between BDR and AE. So making a video together, jumping on Zoom, recording the screen between the 2 of you and sending that, because having a video where you're not ghosted, you book a meeting with Richard and all of a sudden you're on the phone with Dan and you're like, where did Richard go? It's super awkward, especially in this day and age. So try to send over a video to say, I'm not going to be the one on the call. Richard will be on the call. Here's who he is. And then send a video of Richard. So try to do something like that to make it a little more smooth. So the big question that came in the Q&A, if you have any insights, does race, gender, et cetera, have any response rate change in video prospecting? This is obviously the biggest question we get, to be honest, is, well, female, male, the gender effect, don't one get better response rates than the other? And we don't see any change between that. The biggest change we see is how well you're doing your thumbnail. It's honestly the biggest thing. Is it well lit? Are you off to the side of the play button? If your face is right here, nobody knows who you are anyway. So you got to lean to the side. You've got to have a nice whiteboard like Julie does here for Katie. You need to do something unique. Maybe you're using the speech bubble instead. Because one question that did come up is, my team's not comfortable making videos yet. As soon as that record button gets clicked, they just get too nervous. And I actually had, we hired a few people like that as well. They were very uncomfortable making video, but I'm not going to not hire them because of that. So we hired them and we coached them through, starting by making the video a screen share video without any image, without any camera on. Get comfortable with the talk track, get comfortable sending the videos. They're just as impactful. You're not making that human connection. So some of the benefits of making sure they show up for the next meeting and all that stuff might be a little less, but the video impact is still there. The thumbnail impact is still there on the personalization. Then that person started to do the little bubble that you see in a lot of our videos where your camera is in the corner of your screen. And then after 3 or 4 months, he got comfortable enough that he makes screen shares. He does the full camera. He makes jokes about it. He's a very personable person. So I was actually surprised when he didn't like doing videos, and now he's a video rock star. So there's ways to ease into it when you're not comfortable, or maybe your background working from home isn't what you want it to be, whatever it might be. There's ways to get into video. All right, so I've already talked about, but I'm just rambling. I'm going through all these slides, but it's fun. So this is some other examples. So you can start on their LinkedIn, like I mentioned, but you could also start on their website. So it's not necessarily as impactful of a first outreach, because you could have made this and sent it to 10 of their colleagues. So it's not as personal. It's not as like, hey, why are they on my LinkedIn? Hey, why are they saying my name? And getting that customer to lean in, but it does still have good impact. And these kind of videos are great to be used later in the deal cycle, like we'll talk about, because it also gives you a chance to really show that you're an expert in whatever field you're an expert in, because you can be talking and giving them business insights. So for us, it's really easy because we do video hosting. So we can walk them through and be like, look, your homepage just advertised your competitor because you're using YouTube. Wouldn't it be great if you used Vidyard and we could also track everything inside HubSpot? So we can give business insight right on their site or on whatever platform you might be selling. So there's just a nice way to ease into video without it just being a selfie video, because some people don't respond to selfie videos as well as the screen shares, depending on who they are.
That's an interesting point too. I used to sell to product managers and to train salespeople to sell to product managers. Product managers love feedback. They love product feedback. So I can imagine a world where I'm reviewing your product, or I've got your app open, or whatever it might be, providing that feedback. Your product leader goes, all right, this guy or gal's put some thought into this. I'm going to respond to that email.
Oh, I love those ones. One of my first deals I ever closed at Vidyard 8 years ago. I started at Vidyard when we were in a house. We were like the garage startup. And I reached out to this person because I saw their videos on their blog were broken, just complete broken links. And I said, I can get those fixed for you today. If you just reply, I'll get some videos loaded into a Vidyard trial and you can get them on your site. And they've been a customer for 8 years now. It's all about, just like adding business value to them. It's a lot of fun. So I think this actually gets into the next question. So whoever asked about, how to get into making videos when you're more of an introvert, or somebody who's just never had their camera on, they're used to face-to-face, whatever it might be, and how to get comfortable with it. Another way, and I find about 70% of the video that my team sends even is actually pre-canned content, whether it's marketing content or the solution consultant has built a little micro demo. And so a lot of the content they're sending isn't even them, but it's, after a demonstration, I want to follow up with that SalesLoft integration. After the first call, like they're very confused as to why they would do this. So you send them some case study videos, whatever it might be. And a good tip here is you can actually combine pre-existing content like that, whether it's little micro demos, case studies, marketing videos, with a little personal intro. So I still suggest to make a 15-second video that says, great chatting with you today. As promised, here's the SalesLoft demo. And then it'll automatically go to the next video. Just to still get that personal touch, make them realize you made it for them, but get them the value they're looking for. Also, inside of our video platform, you can drive them to the next step. So if they didn't book that meeting with you on the phone, which, you know, as a sales manager, I'm going to tell you should be booking the meeting on the call. But if they don't, at the end of your video, you can have your Calendly link or your HubSpot video calendar link, whatever it is, so that they can book the next step after they've watched your follow-up content. So there's lots of ways to kind of drive them through this sales funnel.
So what an example of this, and I want to double click in because the most recent Forrester Wave just came out, and there's a lot of folks that maybe have that report on offer. Are you saying here there could be a prospecting strategy where I actually read you through this and say, hey, Dan, I thought this would be really interesting for you as a VP of revenue. This is where X, Y, and Z, we came out ahead in the Forrester Wave. And I'm kind of doing like a read over of that. Is that what this is talking about here?
Well, there's two things there. So that's actually an awesome idea. That's more, you know, you're creating a custom piece of content. You've got the Forrester Wave report up and you walk them through with it. That's more, let's see if I can get back a slide here. That's more this one where you kind of walk over your proposal or a Forrester Wave report or whatever it might be. This next one is a bit more on, marketing's already created a video about how awesome you did on the Wave report. And then you can send that to a customer using Vidyard, or you can create a little intro to it, and then it rolls into, you know, your CEO or your CMO talking through how great you did on the Wave report. Those are great ones too, those validation steps, without just sending the PDF. Make a video of it, because then you actually know when they watched it. If they only watched 5% of it, I hate to tell you, they weren't interested. If they watch 100%, then you should call them right away. And you get a notification in Chrome, you get an email saying they watched it. My team is coached that as soon as you see somebody watching your video, you call them like 15 seconds later, because they have their headphones in, they're at their desk, and they're not on a call. You can't be watching a video while you're on a call. It's not possible. So you know they are ready for a phone call.
Well, I realized we were going to get some prospecting strategy. I didn't realize we were going to get some gems like that. I never thought of that, right? I do have my headphones. I've never watched a video and been on a video call before. This is a slick strategy right there, Dan.
Don't tell my CEO, but I did that yesterday, actually. It was really hard to hear, but I really needed to watch this video while my CEO was talking. But wouldn't suggest that. So this next one is a big one for me personally, because I always struggled when I was a rep with like perfectly crafting that discovery follow-up email. They've sent you 6 tennis balls, right? They're like, I need to know about the SalesLoft integration, how it works with Salesforce, and 2 customer case studies in my industry. And so you put that all together in a normal email, and it's like 2 pages long. There's hyperlinks all throughout it. And it's kind of confusing to follow. So you're like bolding some things, making some words bigger, like really trying to draw attention to the stuff you want. Well, let's condense that, put it into like 5 or 6 bullet points, and then use the video to walk them through it. So the video becomes your follow-up, and then there's still hyperlinks below in the bullet points. So you're walking them through your proposal, your follow-up message, all the tennis balls you sent them, and some of the back and forth you're going to have with them to not just go fetch those tennis balls, but in a personal way. So now you're walking them through, and hopefully you can condense that 2-page to, you know, half a page or a page, where the video introduces how and where to find the information they're looking for, and you don't have to be perfectly crafting your sentences. I was listening to who was that gentleman the other day that I was listening to a webinar on, and he talked about, he was the founder of WordPress, and he was talking about how asynchronous communication requires you to really get good at your grammar and your spelling and your English, because you need to send it across and they need to understand it without asking a clarifying question, because you just sent them an email that you won't get a response on for 2 days. Well, a better way to do that, if you're not a wordsmith, is to respond with a video and say what you mean and then just have the bullet points below. So you're avoiding any of that misconfusion that you get through things like Slack messages and emails to follow up with a customer. And this is what we already mentioned. So you get the notification where somebody's watched your video, you can respond right away. But more importantly, it just shows you which deals to really respond to. Like if you can see nobody's opening your emails, you know, SalesLoft's telling you they're not opening, nobody's watching your videos, it's probably not a good deal and they're not that interested. So you can start to strip line them and really weed out the good deals in there.
That's an
Uh,
important part. We've had a lot of folks on talk about the importance of being transparent and honest about your pipeline. And I don't want Dan to just move on from that point. It is important. This is another data point you can use to disqualify, which now is more important than ever because you don't have infinite time. You can't hope your pipeline works. This is yet another data point you can run with here.
yeah. Yeah. And before I kind of transition into the next section, which is now getting into kind of the deal cycle stuff, we had a couple of good questions. And just for clarity's sake, so when you send a video, let's see if I have like a thumbnail. So if I was to send this video that Caitlin made here for Christine, it's actually not sending the video. This is the key so you don't get blocked by spam. It's just the image that's hyperlinked with a hyperlink below it. And the reason we do the image that's hyperlinked and the hyperlink below it is large enterprises with Outlook, a lot of them will have very strict rules where it scrapes every image out of every email. You've probably noticed in your signature, even if you have an image in your signature, that gets stripped out. So then we have that hyperlink there. So it still says, click here to watch my video, and then a link. So it is getting them both ways. We've found that basically if you send, this is from a marketing database, not necessarily personal videos, but if you send out a marketing blast with a hyperlink in it, you might get a 2% click-through rate. If you send out a marketing blast with a video in it, just an image with no link, you'll still get about 2% response rate. If you send out a marketing blast with an image that's hyperlinked and the hyperlink below, you'll get double. You'll get 4.5% response rate because you're catching people who want to see the video, but you're also catching people who have complete image block on their Outlook, but the link is still there. So you've got to have both in there to really make it good. And that's how we make sure we're not getting stuck in spam. All it is an image. There's no file attached. There's nothing like that. It just automatically takes them to a landing page of your choice and plays the video right away.
And these are great questions, folks. So please do keep these coming. As you can see, Dan has a wealth of experience. So feel free to keep firing away as we transition into, now we've talked prospecting, we're transitioning a little bit more into like moving deals that are maybe stuck or kind of in that no man's land.
Like stuck in the middle almost, yeah. All right, so I'll go through some of these. I talked about this at the very beginning of the call. When you're partway through a deal, you already remember like, this person never answers my phone, but does respond to my emails, or vice versa. We just had a deal last month where the rep was really struggling. Like this person just wasn't responding to them. And then when I reached out and sent a video and they watched it, but they still didn't respond to me. But all of a sudden I get a call from an unknown number. I pick it up and it's the gentleman. From that stage forward, he never once responds to our emails, but he will pick up the phone every single time and he will always call me. So I had to actually get my phone off silent because I usually leave it on silent so that I could keep track of when he called back. So use their channel. Where do they respond? Is it LinkedIn? Is it email? Is it a calendar invite? Or is it phone calls? Know their channel and use that to your advantage when you're sending videos or anything else. So I'm kind of getting away from just video specific here. But you can send videos in LinkedIn. You can send them in Twitter. There's a lot of different ways to send. There's actually a great question that came up when people registered is, well, what about SMS? I've been pushing my team a lot since the pandemic happened to use text messaging. People are much more open to it. It doesn't seem as creepy anymore. It just is becoming a norm. And so send a quick video over SMS, either using Vidyard or just your native tool on your phone, because it's still creating that personal connection, still making it kind of fun too. They're like, it's 7 o'clock at night and they're like, oh, I got a video from that rep I was talking to today. That's funny. Like, hey, look at this, Michelle. Like, look at how personal this is. It's an interesting thing, and make them really short, obviously, very, very short, so that it's not wasting their time and it's more like a text message style conversation. So use the channel that they're actually responding to you in. Number one. All right, number two. Get ahead of those bottlenecks. I don't know about everyone's business, but our business right now is just getting killed with info security reviews because everyone in this remote world is like, oh, we need to make sure it's secure. So we're like, every single deal has it. So what should you do? You should create a video from your solution consulting or security team that walks through the security reviews and preemptively be sending that to your decision-making team so that you're not then finding out after 2 months that it's a problem. So get that out there, record some micro demos so that you're getting all the technical bottlenecks out of the way, and you're sending it to I'm going to talk about this later, but you're sending it to your champion And so they're not having to go to the security team as like a, marketing manager or campaign manager and having to explain how GDPR works with the personal identifiable information that Vidyard tracks. Like that's never going to work. So give that person the video that explains it so they can just share the video with the security person.
And
You need
as a
to enable them.
recovering and reformed solution consultant and sales engineer, the folks on that side of your technical support team are going to love you for doing that, because they don't want to be on 18 calls answering the same 4 questions over and over again.
Yeah. Our security director always jokes. She's like, every time you invite me to a call, I say hi, and then I say bye. So why am I on the call?
To show that you exist, that you're a real person. No, that's great. That's actually one that you could. There's a whole school of thought on, right? You're better at selling than your buyers are at buying. Hey, Dan, I know you've probably never bought software like this before. Take this video package of Hannah and the sales engineering team to your security team. It's going to save you a world of hurt down the road. I'd love that point.
Oh, that's a great way of wording it too. So aside from the technical stuff, there's also just all the bottlenecks you're going to find. Right now, Chorus.ai is finding that 90% increase in deals involves C-level, and specifically CFOs. CFOs are getting involved at the final stage just to make sure they're making the right decision before signing. There's one extra call. So we're seeing this like extra call you have to do. Well, maybe you don't have to do that call if you take the demo you just did, send it to the customer in a video so that they can share that with the CFO or the business case or whatever it ends up being relevant. So you're enabling your champion to get rid of that roadblock before you end up having it in the last stage of the deal. Number 3, and there's a couple of Q&As I'm going to go back to, but I want to just finish number 3 here. Go broad. So the other thing to think about is, you've made a video that is applicable for the entire decision-making team. And so get that out there to all of them. And if your champion isn't effectively forwarding it, if you're not seeing any views on that video, forward it to them directly. I have one deal right now who is the CRO just doesn't think they believe in the use of video. And so I just sent him a video from Jamie Shanks, one of our partners and sales trainers who, drawing a blank, Sales for Life. So, big corporation that does all these sales trainings. And he's like, if you're not using video in your sales process, you're going to be left behind. So it wasn't me saying it. I sent somebody else's video to the CRO saying, like, you need to be using video in all of your sales cycles. So it was great to see stuff like that. And, one of the questions is, are you sending from Vidyard? So isn't that going to get blocked by spam because it's coming from our servers? It's not coming from our servers. It's your email client, Gmail or Outlook. All we're doing is inserting the image with the link so that we're not getting into that masking problem like you do with Salesforce when you're sending an email from Salesforce. Just go straight to spam all the time. We're not sending it from our servers. It's we're just helping you embed easily into your email, so you're not doing it manually. When I started at Vidyard, we didn't have this tool, so I would like screenshot a thumbnail, I'd paste it into the email, I'd hyperlink it. This just basically automates all of that. All right. So this is the one we just talked a lot about, just enabling your champion. So it's not even just the last stages, but give videos to your champion so they can take them, whether it's the security documentation, the business case to the CFO, the the number of leads to CMO. Like anybody who hasn't been on these calls, the big one here, and this kind of goes back to somebody's question when we first started, was where do I use video in my sales stages? I'm going to break it into 2 sections. There's prospecting and there's your sales stages. On the prospecting side, this is part of our onboarding that we do. We get you to write down your cadence. So if you use SalesLoft or Outreach or whatever it is, write down your cadence. How many emails, how many days between, how many phone calls, how many LinkedIn messages, what are the conversion rate, what are the response rates on each of them? And then let's take a look at it. So I referenced Salesforce earlier. Their first 3 emails get such a high response rate. I don't even think video would help much there. So it's a waste of time. Let's not do video there. Oh, but it looks like they have issues with booking meetings over 72 hours away. And they were having issues like stage, the last 2 emails that they were sending just weren't getting any responses. So it's worth a shot. Let's, they've already got a bunch of responses. They've pared it down to the last few leads that they haven't heard from. Let's get a personal video in there to try to convert as many of those leads as possible as a percentage. And so that's where you should really think about from a prospecting perspective is, where am I not getting responses? Where am I getting stuck? Where am I having my constipated funnel? And let's throw a video in there to smooth it out and get people to the next phase, or have them reply saying, stop, I'm not interested. That's still a response. I don't care whether it's positive or negative. It stopped wasting my time now. So that's one side. The other side is kind of different nowadays. The way I think about the sales stages, it used to be we would do a similar uh, exercise with our customers. Now it's changed a little bit because now you're thinking, which part of my sales stage did I use to travel to go meet the customer in person? When did I have to do the live meeting? How can video help to smooth that over now that we can't do that? And so it becomes a bit of a bigger discussion of, okay, what kind of videos do I need to make to enable my champion? What kind of videos do I need to make to get rid of security roadblock? So you really have to, get through all of that and really like understand which areas of my sales stage is really screwed right now because of the pandemic, and how am I going to fix that using video? Because that is the easiest way to smooth over and miss some of those in-person meetings. Because honestly, when you used to do those meetings anyway, there was always one decision maker that didn't show up in the room anyway. So you'd have to then follow up with them separately. So either way, you should be doing this. Even if you are getting back to meeting in person, be prepared to figure out, okay, when those two people, key decision makers that maybe have health concerns or whatever, didn't show up to that meeting, I'm going to make a video that speaks to them like this. And the one thing to think about is, when you're sending that video to your champion, you're not talking to your champion. You're talking to their CFO, their CMO, their CEO, whoever the decision team is. And so make sure, just like when you're in a boardroom, that you're addressing each of their personas appropriately, so that they get their questions answered in that video. Yeah, now this is an interesting one. How long should the videos be? This comes up all the time. And I always say they should be as long as your customer is willing to listen. So you'll see the reporting. If you see all your videos getting viewed 40%, your video is way too long. I always try to keep mine under a minute, to be honest, and more real about it. But when you're doing a demo follow-up that might have several parts, or if you're enabling your champion for a proposal video, 2 to 3 minutes is fine. The next time you're watching a video and you got bored, take a look at how long it's been. I bet it's only been 45 seconds. It's a new world right now. And somebody internally sent me a 3-minute video today on a pretty important topic about our website. And I struggled to get through it. 3 minutes is really long. So really be cognizant when you're making videos, what your customer is going to feel.
And we're also really grateful that everybody's 37 minutes into this webinar and still paying attention.
Yeah, I love that. The fun thing to think about in the old days was when you were typing a prospecting email, and I think I got this from John Barrows. When you're typing a prospect email, send it to yourself and read it on your phone. If it doesn't fit on the screen, it's too long. Try again. And it's the same thing with this. Send yourself the video. If you can't even make it through watching the whole thing, your prospect is definitely not going to make it through the whole thing. So try that out. Now, the other way to use video is to get your senior leaders to get involved with your deals without it being weird. You know those old days where it's like, hey, CEO, can you send this email? Here's a template to my customer. Thanks. And then the customer would reply being like, thank you, Michael. I don't really know why you're reaching out, but nice to make a connection. Now, at least it can be an exciting, personable video from your CEO, your VP, whoever's not involved, just to humanize, being like, I hear you're having some great success. I actually had a great story about this the other day. So we had our CEO reach out to one of our new customers just before it closed, but it was a specific reason. That customer, the lady who was running it, the main point of contact, strongly believes in the future of work. Her business was very, ad space, knocking on doors, getting newspaper ads and stuff done. She's now had to figure out how to completely redo their entire sales process. And she believes in the future of work being completely remote, even in her industry of localized ad sales. And so I was like, you've got to talk to our CEO. This is going to be a great discussion. I'll have him reach out. And so Michael reached out to her, just, saying, thank you so much for evaluating Vidyard, but actually I want to talk to you about this. And that's ideal, because now that customer has a human connection with our brand right from the very top, and helped make sure there was no other roadblocks and just get everything else out of the way.
I feel like this would be absolutely phenomenal in RFP responses as well, weaving that in terms of enabling your resources, because those can be like the security review. It can be a very faceless, dry process, but it's like, oh, this is Dan and he's going to be supporting our organization, or oh, it's a message from Sally, the CEO or whatever. That could be really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I always find like an RFP response very similar to a cover letter. It's like cover letters, if they're dry and long, nobody wants to read it. If you send over a video as your cover letter, I'm going to interview you. Like, hey, well, unless your video was terrible, but if you seem like a good sales rep on the video, I think you're worth talking to. And it's the same thing with these RFP responses or security questionnaires. Sending a quick video just to overview it gets back to having that personal connection again. Sorry, I was just reading the next Q&A that came in just because it's an interesting idea here. Now, if you have a long video, is it a good idea to edit it into 4 pieces and make it like, a 2x2 group of videos? It could be, so you can embed multiple videos into an email. I would suggest no more than 2 personally, where like back to my point about a discovery follow-up, send your personal video and then down lower, the integration walkthrough detail that they needed from a technological standpoint. But I wouldn't necessarily do too many videos on one email. Similar to marketing, whenever you're doing a marketing email, you always should have at most 2 calls to action in the email, and you try to only have 1. That's what you're always thinking about. All right, so this is one I'm pretty excited about, and all my reps do this now. You should never send a proposal document, because then you have to make sure it's worded perfectly, that the slide makes sense. We all know salespeople are not that great at making slides, so don't do this. Don't send it over. Have a document, screen record with your camera on that side, and talk through the proposal. So ideally, you're scheduling an in-person meeting on Zoom, but if they're not able to do that, or some people miss the call, record your proposal, send it over, because then you'll know who watches it, how long they watched for, did it actually get to the CFO? You can ask some commonly asked questions during the video, and just remove all that friction of going back and forth on like, wait, I didn't understand what that meant, the discount, or what does this slide mean? All of that goes away because you've talked through it. Now, in this case, we've actually put a link to the proposal in the video, so you can have these actions show up during the video. I wouldn't even do that. I would screen record, go through the proposal, and have that be your proposal, and not even share the document. Now, a lot of companies will be like, "Hey, send me the document. Stop doing that." So it just depends on who you're dealing with.
And I think too, it's a very, and back to that, like you were saying with cover letters, like proposals, having sent one to Vidyard as you were coming on as a sponsor, they pretty, not a lot of innovations happened in that space, right? They're kind of dry, maybe a little bit academic, hopefully worded correctly. So this makes it definitely a little bit more real and material to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, this is the next one. This is the one I always get excited about. How do you just maintain that momentum so that you don't get stuck in the middle? That's like the big thing, right? And in this case, this was a handoff to a CSM. So you've closed the deal. You want to make sure that the person feels well supported as it moves into the CSM and launch team. So we used to make these videos in person at our office to say, hey, this is going to be Greg who's going to take on your account. Now we can't do this anymore. So now we jump on a Zoom and record our screen with the gallery view. So that we're doing the same thing side by side in videos. And the key thing here is just create that delight, make the customer feel well supported, and goes back to that point of like, especially a BDR handoff where you join a call and the person you just talked to over email is not even on the call. And you're like, where'd they go? This just helps smooth that through so that it just makes the conversion rates really high as it goes through. I'm a big fan on the CSM side as well, because it just makes sure you're aligned with your CSM to help with the expansion in the first 90 days. That's kind of what we always think of.
Well, and it's something too, we've all been a part of the SE hops on the call, and then he or she runs discovery. Then I go to the CSM and they ask me the same questions that the account executive and the sales engineer asked. And then, my goodness, if I get to pro serve, it's another set of the same questions. So I could see humanizing that quite a bit.
Exactly. Yeah, really. And even having, the SC or the BDR, whoever is the pass off person in the video talking through those bullet points, because then the CSM heard it because they're right there, and ProServe heard it. Like, it's a great way of doing it.
I know you heard it. I saw you listening to Richard. I know you heard him say X, Y, and Z.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I thought it was going to be kind of relevant to this, but I couldn't make the good segue. But somebody had a good question about, when you're sending out that video to enable your champion, sometimes it's tough to really identify like, IT versus CMO versus CFO, even when you're in a boardroom. So should we make separate videos to send to each person? Uh, I would say 20% of the time we do that, and 80% of the time we'll just make one video to share amongst everybody. It depends on how specific each team needs their video. So like IT security is almost always its own video because it's just completely irrelevant from a business case perspective and everything else. It has words that I don't even know what they mean. So the SC makes that video. Whereas the decision-making team video, typically one video will cover everyone's needs if you're able to craft it. But if you know there's like a really specific need that the marketers have for their integrations versus the salespeople, then it's good to split those into two as well. It's just tough when you get to a business case perspective because usually you're encompassing all of the benefits they're going to get, not just each one specifically.
This was really, really, really interesting stuff, Dan. I appreciate you sharing all of this. We've had a bunch of good questions come in, but I do want to encourage our audience to kind of come in and bring in some more questions that they may have. One question I have about this, Dan, we touched on a lot of different elements. How is this in terms of the onboarding, right? When you're getting an organization kind of comfortable using video, is it a all or nothing switch, or do you see maybe SDRs come on first and use it as part of prospecting, and then AEs, and then maybe solutions consultants or sales engineers or whatever? Or do you see organizations kind of come in and they go, we're doing video, everybody get used to it, flip your camera on?
Yeah, it definitely depends. And that's why we have our free product. Because a lot of companies we find who do, like the ones that do come in and say, all right, everyone's using video, let's go. They already had 100 or 200 free users. So they've already done it just organically without talking to us. Whereas other companies have gone the other way, where it's exactly what you say. It's either starting with the AEs or the SDRs, and then typically SCs are just added into one of those two buckets. I would say a year ago it was all SDR, BDRs really figuring it out. Lately, it's been all AEs. It's like completely flipped because now the account executive world has flipped on its head, trying to figure out how to sell remotely. We ended up, there was a big customer that signed on recently, and they reached out and said, would you mind doing a training with our reps? This was just to one of my account executives. Would you mind doing a training for one of our team of reps next week, just on how to sell virtually? Like nothing to do with Vidyard, but like literally how to use Zoom, best practices on how to invite people to a virtual meeting, because all of our meetings were held on the customer's office before. And we're like, sure. Yeah. Like I've only ever sold remotely since my days at BlackBerry. I used to travel every week back then in a channel sales environment, but from Salesforce onward, I've only met probably 5 customers in person in the last 10 years, other than at conferences and things. So I think there's industries like ours that this has been an easy transfer. There's other industries that are just figuring out how to sell without meeting in person in general. And those are the ones we're really helping just transform their business in a more general way. But to your point about how do you launch this, the key thing I always see is like the sales leadership or sales enablement needs to define 3 to 5 specific use cases of video that a rep must use. It's similar to if I just said, hey guys, could you fill out competitors in Salesforce so we know who we're competing against? Nobody's going to do that. Like, hey, could you just use video? Like, use it. It seems like it's a good idea. Nobody's going to do it. If I say, hey, at stage 4, if the competitor field's not filled out, the deal goes to a different rep. Then they're going to do it. And this is where it comes with this, is like, you must send a video to follow up with your discovery. And I'll be reviewing them because I can see in Vidyard all the views, and I can see in Salesforce how many videos you're sending. You're going to send all of your proposals as a video. Let's just start there, those two. In the BDR world, every single one of your first touches will be a nice personal selfie video, and I'll take a look at them. And here's a script on how to do it. It's basically a voicemail script. It doesn't need to be anything crazy. Those are the kind of things that people I don't think are important. They're like, oh, reps will just organically start using it. Reps don't organically start using anything. That is like not a thing that salespeople do. So you need to define the 3 things they need to do, and maybe even a script that they can use to do it for the first few times.
Well, and it feels like too that you'd start to get some tailwinds as well from an adoption standpoint. If folks started to be successful, then it spreads, right? It's like you have the adoption comes from the success that organizations are seeing and individuals are seeing, and then others start to hop up there.
Yeah. And that's a great thing we've done internally for not just video, but for other tactics as well, is having a like Slack channel where you post, oh, look at this response I got from this video. Just like a wins channel. So that then, to your point, it organically gets snowballing.
Well, and I guess that's another question I was going to ask on this from a leadership perspective, right? We've got a good mix of folks who are in operations capacity. This is a healthy group of registrants who are sales managers and up. How does this change, or how do you coach on this? Is it actually just video review and making sure that they said the words on the script? Like, what's a good analogy? Is it like voicemail coach? I'm trying to think of how I would deploy this actually from a
Yeah.
coaching.
On the SDR BDR side, it's like voicemail coaching. On the AE side, it's like chorus and gong coaching, because you're looking at what their follow-up said, you're looking at the tactic they used and when they followed up, and what did they say in their proposal. Did they talk about pricing too early? Like all the same stuff that chorus and gong do from a Zoom recording perspective should be what you're looking at in Vidyard. I'm actually talking to chorus next week about how Vidyard videos could get into chorus so that we can do the same exact analysis of it. That would just make my life easier rather than manually looking at it. And so that's exactly how I think of it, is like just like a call coach. Like, hey, let's review that video you sent last week to that big enterprise and see see how they handled it, and just do a live coaching session with your rep.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of surface area here. This is really exciting, folks. We're gonna have just a few more minutes for Q&A here. We've got Dan until the top of the hour, but we're certainly not going to hold him hostage. If you do have any more questions, please do throw those in the Q&A panel. Dan, I'm going to ask you a question here about prospecting, kind of in general, and how this all fits in. How do you see this playing out over the next couple of years? Right, you mentioned inside sales is the new thing, right? Field sellers are coming inside. How do you see this technology kind of evolving and adapting over the next, let's call it 3 or 4 years? Oh, you're muted, Dan.
I was drinking water and I failed myself. So over the past year, what we really focused on is getting into the sales automation space, getting in built into Salesforce or SalesLoft, Outreach, Zant, Move, all these companies, and making sure we're right in there, because that was the future last year. Now the future becomes, okay, where else are people using video? Where else are people communicating with their customers? Obviously Outlook, Gmail, we're already in, but now it becomes desktop app, mobile app, all of the areas, because it now becomes so integral to your day-to-day process as opposed to traditionally a prospecting tool. And so that's kind of the next year, and then multiple years, this just becomes the norm. I remember 2-3 years ago, nobody turned their Zoom camera on. I think we were the only company that did. Now, most people do. It's still coming. And then a couple years from now, everyone will be sending their videos through email. Everyone will have their Zoom camera on. Like when I first started at Vidyard, there wasn't even Zoom. It didn't even exist. So the world is going to change and become super heavy on video.
I think that's true too, as the generationally, as well as the next generation enters the workforce that's had ubiquitous connectivity, HD video all the time. I can just pop. We were talking about TikTok before, but there it is. Cool. What's up, followers? Like it feels like it's a natural evolution in that area as well. We had one last question come in, Dan, and I'll paraphrase for you here, but this is a great question from Lucas, and Lucas is selling and having conversations with cybersecurity professionals. Is there a reluctance, have you heard of a reluctance from that group, folks that are security conscious, privacy otherwise, to open these types of, prospecting, maybe personalized video or otherwise?
Yeah, it has come up, and we've had lots of customers ask it. We were on the phone with MongoDB the other day, as an example, and they were talking through something similar. What you have to do with that group is make sure it's personal. Screen recording does better, and also make a joke about it. And it's right there. Like, I've made this personal video for you. As you can see, it's on our domain. But if you do have any questions about the risk on watching this video, please let me know. Like, just put it right out there. Because when you are a paying customer of Vidyard, you can make the link your own link so that it's, modernsales.video.com or whatever you want it to be, instead of the standard vidyard.com. That being said, we are very strict on who can use our platform to make sure that we're not having any issues like that. And so we, will block any inappropriate content. We have automatic scrapers for all of that, automatic scrapers for any copyrighted songs. So we are strictly for B2B, and we are very careful with who we let on the platform as well.
No, and it makes sense too. That's the way that the world is going, right? Privacy and security conscious is important. Dan, I know you're super, super busy. This was awesome. This was a lot of fun, a lot of really, really interesting, and a lot of great practical advice for you, for our MSP members, especially when most folks rated themselves as a sort of a C or below in terms of their knowledge on video prospecting. So Dan, on behalf of the entire Modern Sales Pros community, Gina and Jesse behind the scenes, I want to thank you for sharing your time, and thank you for Vidyard for the sponsorship as well.
Anytime. This was a lot of fun, and if anyone does have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. And with that, everybody stay safe and have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Take care, Dan. Thanks again.
See ya.